Mere conservatism.
I know a lot of people that seem to think that the world knows when the calendar turns and that everything's going to be fixed.
I hear the same type of sentiment.
2020 was bad, and so now that it's 2021, everything's going to be fine.
Yeah.
I don't think that's how the world works.
By the way, I'm Cleve Walker. That's David Perry, and we hope that your new year feels good, at least at the start.
It's been the longest year ever. Of course, the pandemic. Do you remember World War III? That was this year too. You remember that at the beginning of the year when Trump took out the Iranian terrorist leader guy,
and everybody was saying it was the opening salvo for World War III.
And then there was
something. I hate to say it, but those almost sound like the good times.
Yeah, those were the good old days. World War III. It has been a wild year.
2020 definitely it threw us all for a loop, and yet wow, the biggest election is coming up.
Georgia Senate election.
The Georgia Senate election. I keep saying this is huge, but David, this is huge.
It's a big deal. I mean, control of the Senate is in the balance here, and it's a close race. I live in Georgia. It really is a big deal because it will let us know how much damage the Democrats are going to be able to do.
Yes.
To the country, but to Trump's legacy and the things that he was able to accomplish. They're wanting to do a lot of things, and the Georgia Democrats that are running, these are not blue dog Democrats, if that's a thing. These are very left wing,
hardcore,
and really and very radical.
Yes.
In Reverend Warnock's example, very left wing. So it's quite a stark choice that we have here in Georgia.
Jody Hice, congressman from Georgia, talking about what you're talking about. He was on Fox and Friends, and he says the issue he believes is the most important to voters is making sure their vote actually counts.
Right now, at least what I'm hearing in Georgia and in my district in particular, are concerns over election security and the fact that if we lose the security in the elections, then we lose our republic.
Now, Georgia Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger continues to say, hey, everything is copacetic. Everything's cool. Everything's checking out. But, David, I got to tell you, I got a feeling in the pit of my stomach, the same feeling when I told you those mail-in ballots were going to be an issue in the presidential election before the election. I remember telling you that. I said, oh, no, they're looking strange. I'm getting a strange feeling there's some voter fraud going on undercover, and if this isn't already as close as you think, it wouldn't take much to tip this in favor of the Democrats. Yeah,
well, one-term Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger, I'm pretty sure is going to be the case.
I think you're right.
Right or wrong, I don't think his political future is too bright after what's gone on in Georgia. He's a Republican, and Republicans are not happy with what has gone on and what they see as, right or wrong, a lack of effort on Raffensperger's part to make sure things are legit. I believe that he's probably doing everything he can do.
I don't know.
But is it enough?
I just wish he were more humble about it and said, I want to try to check into it. But he's just on the defensive.
Well, he's gotten indignant over people challenging the election in Georgia. He has gotten indignant.
Yeah.
And one thing that I said several weeks ago, he started talking, Raffensperger started saying things like, well, Trump shouldn't have campaigned so hard against mail-in voting and stuff like that. And I said on social media, I said, we don't need commentary from Raffensperger.
Thank you.
We don't need that from you.
Yeah.
Do what you're supposed to do. Make sure the election goes right and that it's secure. We don't need your analysis of the election.
Raffensperger needs to understand, by the way, that every poll shows that the large majority of Republicans feel that this was not a fair election.
Well,
so
and
he's throwing this in their faces.
Based on the numbers, there are Democrats that don't believe that
that's true.
That were not really convinced that it was on the up and up. So he's unfortunately, he's human. So he's getting his work challenged.
Yeah.
He's getting accused of doing a bad job, and so he's defending himself. That's normal and natural to do that. But it's not a good look.
No.
I hope he's right. I hope he's doing everything he can to make sure that there aren't illegal votes in this election. The issue is time. I mean, these things are really happening very quickly. It's difficult in a presidential election to prove the kind of voter fraud that some people allege in just a few weeks. And it's going to be difficult, too, to get ready for another election after just having one 2 months later and making sure everything is on the up and up. So, Cleve, I'm like you. I believe that there were definitely shenanigans and weird. There's so many weird anomaly things that happened during the 2020 election that I can't not think that something weird happened. Now, what exactly it was, I can't confidently say. I have some ideas. But I can't, I can't prove anything other than saying it's obvious that something really, really weird happened in many states in many cases. So
I just wish. I mean, when people say, "Well, they have not presented proof," every forum they try to get before to get their proof out there has turned them away before they could even get the proof out there. And
yes, there have been some judicial missteps. I do believe that. A lot of the things, though, a lot of the cases, though, maybe some of them were weak. I mean, so the Trump legal team, what have they brought, like 60 cases or something like that? I'm sure a lot of those are pretty weak cases, and maybe a lot of them are.
Well, some of them had to do with standing, not on the actual
right. Standing has been the issue, and in some of them, and a lot of them, the media has reported, and it's been true in some cases that they're not actually alleging voter fraud, because that's difficult to prove on a grand scale enough to change the outcome of the election. We talked about all this quite a bit in our past episodes, but the bottom line is Brad Raffensperger, Secretary of State of Georgia, he is on the hot seat. I don't think he's going to be Secretary of State again when his turn comes up to be elected 2 years from now. But hopefully this election, this Senate election, is going to be legit. It doesn't really matter what happens. There's going to be people, Cleve, that will never believe that the 2020 election was legit or that this special Senate election is legit. Lots of Republicans and lots of Democrats will never believe it was. But guess what? That's nothing new, because there are still Democrats holding on to President Al Gore as being the legitimate president in 2000, and also Trump and Russia collusion. There are people that still believe that, despite all the evidence
If the situation comes to the pass that the Democrats win these seats, or whether they don't, the leaders of the Republican Party will have their hands full. McConnell, who is a procedural guy, he's going to do his part. But Lindsey Graham, his star might get even bigger depending on what takes place. He kind of gave his commentary on the importance of the runoff election, and as only he can.
If we lose the Senate and they have control of the House, the Senate, and the White House, they're going to send over a monster of a bill and will make this bill look cheap. So if you want to save America, if you want to save free enterprise, you want to keep the Supreme Court at 9, not 13, you want to deny legal immigrants free health care, you want to keep the border secure, win Georgia.
All right. So he says it's very simple. They get their chance to do what Schumer says, change America, if they win the Senate.
Yeah, when somebody like Schumer says change America, and they're relying on Ossoff and Warnock to do that, the kind of change we're talking about.
Yeah. Unfortunately.
Not good stuff.
So, again, you've already voted?
No, I have voted. I have not voted yet in the special election.
Okay.
I may do that today.
Good.
Maybe.
Good.
If I don't do it today, I think today might be the last day to early vote. I may have to do it
As of the time
Tuesday.
of the production of this broadcast, I think it is. But I know you're going to do it. Proud of you, and again, we just need everybody to do it.
Mm-hmm.
By the way,
it's all about turnout.
Do you think when do you think they're going to have the exact returns? Because this is record turnout, record voting. Is there a possibility that it might take a little bit of time?
Well, I don't know, but the next day is when the Congress or something is certifying the Electoral College vote. That's going to be a big day in Washington. I don't know.
I can just see where they can't announce the results for a day or so, which would only make things worse.
Yeah,
because
they've got to find out a way to do these elections to where we can find out the day that it happens.
Well, the way you do it you vote in person, and unless you have a good reason, you do away with the absentee. That's the way you do it.
Voting in person with an ID is the best way to vote.
It is the only way. By the way, I heard this just recently, David. Did you know the majority of the civilized world, including the European Union, have outlawed mail-in ballots as far as voting? They banned it. They don't use it anymore. They did one time, and they felt it was too corrupt. And so unless you have legitimate excuse, they don't use mail-in balloting at all.
Yeah, that's interesting to hear. The thing
we're the only one nation that a modern nation that is continuing to do it.
Well, and we also have at least 50 different election laws that govern us, which is supposed to be, Cleve, a strength. That is supposed to be that's supposed to make it hard to corrupt an election when it's decentralized like that. But we have 50 different states that all do it different ways, and as we saw on Election Day, some states were ready, and some states weren't. Like Florida was ready, Texas was ready. Pennsylvania, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, they decided they weren't going to count any mail-in votes until after the polls closed,
something like
on
that.
Tuesday. And Nevada, same way. And so what ensued was weeks and weeks of trying to figure out who won. They were not ready for the volume of mail-in that they got, while Florida was counting them as they got them. So they were ready.
Yeah.
So
I just hope nothing weird. Because I think there would be riots and revolution if something weird happens with this Georgia election.
It's a problem, Cleve.
Yeah.
The election, what is happening is a problem, no matter how you look at it. And I don't know what the answer is necessarily. I have my own personal feelings on it, but at least as far as how to solve it, I'm not really sure. But you're in a place in America right now where almost no matter what you do, you're going to really tick off half the country.
The problem is it could be solved very easily, and it's just that doing it, having the political will to require voter ID and to limit mail-in balloting, that would solve the problems, no matter how many systems are in the different states.
Yeah.
But when you allow these ballots to be mailed out for anybody to get a hold of them and ballot harvesting becomes a thing, you're never going to have the assurance from the general populace that there ever be another fair election. So whatever happens, this has got to be addressed. This is huge.
Well, and I don't know if you what you think about this, Cleve, but there are people that just want everybody to have the opportunity to vote, and what they worry about is now. I know you're making a face at me. What I'm saying is, I understand if somebody's argument is this is something that I can understand. Somebody says everybody needs the chance to vote, and there are some people that unfortunately one day out of the year, every 4 years, where they can get off work or find transportation or whatever to get somewhere where they can vote, it's hard for them to do that. So, and I understand that. So, I mean,
there are legitimate grounds.
What do you think about? Well, there's absentee for that purpose, but also, what do you think about early voting? Is that something that should happen? If you can early vote, and voting takes place in a period of a week, and you have a week to do it. Right. Instead of one day.
If it's in person early voting, I like it. I'm just against this mail-in stuff, whether it's whatever phase of the voting process it's in. I don't mind in-person or advanced voting. I think that's okay. But I just think you need voter ID. It's not a hardship, as somebody claims it is. It's an easy thing to do. And if a person were winning the lottery, they'd make sure they have a photo ID if they want to get their winnings. So this is too important to try to shovel it off to say, hey, it's discriminatory against those who can't do it. This is too important. If you don't think enough of your vote to make an effort to get out there and vote, if you're physically able, then I don't think you should vote.
Well, and to change these things, we're going to have to elect people on the local level to change these things. Because
Thank you. You brought that up before.
A lot of these things are they're put in place by the state that you live in, and in some cases the county that you live in sets up their own precincts and stuff like that. So it's going to take voting on a lower level. You can't just vote for president. Yeah. Like apparently most Joe Biden voters did. They just voted for president and nobody else. Apparently.
That's another one of those anomalies we're going to have to look
this
at.
Stuff is hard to change. Yeah. And when it comes down to it, things are in place and they're hard to move. These laws are hard to change once they get in there. But something needs to be done with the way we handle this. I think 2020 proves it.
If you can't trust it, your vote's going to be counted, then a lot of folks are going to give up on the system, and maybe rightfully so. On January the 6th, you mentioned earlier, Congress convenes to count the Electoral College votes as submitted by the states. Now, Missouri Republican Senator Josh Hawley says he's going to join GOP members of the House to object to the Electoral College votes submitted by states that found Joe Biden won, with his 306 electoral votes to 232 for Trump. He was on Fox, the story feature with Martha McCallum, and he reacted to Democrats who are accusing election challengers of wanting to overturn democracy.
I don't recall hearing the Democrats make any such outrageous claims when they were the ones who were objecting during the Electoral College certification in 2004 and 2016. Democrats have done this for years in order to raise concerns about election integrity. Now when Republicans, 74 million Americans, have concerns about election integrity, we're supposed to just sit down and shut up?
So it's not a new thing what it's going to be doing.
This is true. This is a good point that the Democrats just did this 4 years ago.
That's right.
So,
and at that time, though, it was great. It was a
heroes.
Moral stand.
Well, because Trump was the great Satan.
Yes.
And anything standing against him makes you a moral superior.
Definitely.
That's why this is. Look, this is the process, and this is entirely appropriate. Mm-hmm. If somebody wants to decide to do this, is constitutional. Yeah. It is the process. Democrats did it, and guess what? I ignored it because I knew that Donald Trump won.
Right.
So if Democrats are worried, they think that this is going to overturn democracy somehow. Everybody, not everybody. So many people, Cleve, are so overwrought about this stuff, about a threat to democracy and all this stuff. It drives me crazy. You guys get over yourself and stop being so dramatic.
Yeah.
Okay. Now you were a drama kid, right?
I was
drama
in
team,
school,
and you played
100
Eeyore.
years ago. Yeah.
You played Eeyore in the High School Musical. So you know what it's like to be dramatic like this and why. But I just get the sense from these people that they're in a High School Musical. They're so dramatic about everything that happens. Yeah. And would you just? These are people that are telling us that legal proceedings, the Trump legal team going to a judge with a case is a threat to democracy.
Yes.
Really?
Treason, I've heard it.
A treason. Really? A legal challenge? So a threat to democracy is a lawyer going to a courthouse and talking to a judge. Are you, what? That's illegal. Anyway, a threat to democracy would be I've seen some people who are really mad and they're kind of crazy and they say martial law. Trump should do martial law, and I'm like, guys, don't be stupid. These people are losing. Some people are losing their minds. Okay, so that's on the right side of the aisle too, and on Trump's side, you cannot. People asking for martial law don't know what they're asking for.
No,
that's
they don't.
Stupid, but. This kind of legal challenge, this is not a threat to democracy. This is democracy in action. This is our system. So I don't think anything's going to come of it.
Right.
But I don't think it's inappropriate for Congress to do that. And look, Republican parties in states all over the country are saying there's weird things. The Republican Party in Michigan,
has to be addressed.
The Republican Party in Pennsylvania, the Republican Party in Georgia. They're saying there's weird stuff happening here. Right. This is not right. This isn't legit. So we need to find out. And
it has to be addressed. And that's what they're doing. We have to look at it. We have to bring it to light. It has to be in the spotlight because, unfortunately, as you and I know, the media is not going to cover it. The media is not going to report on it. So unless you do something, as in this case, a constitutional thing, it'll never be heard by the majority of the country, the concerns that you're talking about.
And frankly, I don't think it's outside of the realm of being reasonable for a special counsel to be appointed.
I think that's the only way.
Now, William Barr is saying that he hasn't seen enough evidence of voter fraud to justify it. But when you got the entire Republican Party of Pennsylvania with questions about there being more votes than voters, like in other words, the poll books don't match up.
Right.
They had all these votes, but like 200,000 fewer people that supposedly came to vote than the votes they counted. We should have an answer for that.
And we know that it's not going to be looked at in an objective way under a Biden Justice Department. It has to be somebody independent who's able to look at things from a serious objective point of view.
And look, I'm willing to to hear a reasonable explanation for that kind of thing.
If you have one.
If there is one, and then maybe there is one.
Yeah.
But I haven't heard it yet because it's not really being talked about. The media, all the media will do, and social media is doing the same thing, is this claim about election fraud is disputed. That's all they'll say. They won't talk about the facts behind it. They're not looking into it. And I was thinking this week about all the things that they did this about leading up to the election. Not long after the Democrat National Convention, the media stopped covering riots.
I remember.
They refused to cover Hunter Biden scandals. They refused to talk about Joe Biden's obvious mental decline. They didn't show that Joe Biden was getting like 15 people in a room for his rallies while Trump was drawing thousands and thousands.
No, they didn't.
They did all kinds of things that we talked about for a while, and then they sort of fell out of our consciousness because they wouldn't talk about them.
Disappeared.
And this is one of those things. The election fraud stuff is one of those things that they're just really not talking about unless they say conspiracy theory.
Well, that's why Trump wants to remove, and that's why he did the veto thing, allowing the media the social media to maintain something that has prevented them from being sued. Because now that we see they are publishers, they need to be held to a different standard. And therefore, to me, they've shown, otherwise they get to do this all over again, literally be a giant boost for the Democrat Party by virtue of banning and shadow and also other stuff they do against.
And they're so comically biased about it. It's really hilarious. I mean, I was thinking the other day about how they come up with a warning that says this claim is under dispute, and I thought to myself, name a claim ever that has not been under dispute. Every claim people make is under dispute by somebody.
Good point.
I mean, what does this even mean? No, they just they have their chosen topic of things that you're not allowed to talk about without a warning, and they put the label on that because they're arbiters of the information we get and how we perceive it.
They need to be open to civil litigation since they have chosen to go that route. Somebody needs to have an option about that. One silver lining behind the fact that this pandemic is happening is we're seeing the Democrats revealed as what they are, little dictators, governors and mayors who are squashing the hopes and dreams of people by shutting down small businesses while allowing other businesses of the same category to stay open. Now, there's a campaign going on to recall California Governor Gavin Newsom that's picking up steam. I think last time was over 900,000 people that signed it.
Can I sign it?
I wish you could. Congressman-elect Darrell Issa, who's reelected, was asked about his support for the recall in California.
If you go to a restaurant right now in San Diego and they are open in defiance of the governor, I can tell you everyone that walks in is happy to sign the recall because whether it's the owner or the restaurant patrons, they're in there knowing this governor is unfairly hampering their rights. So there's no shortage of people to sign. You just have to get a ballot in front of them.
So wouldn't that be great? I mean, because this is an example of what we're talking about. We were talking about socialism. We see the actions of people like Governor Newsom or the governor of New York or the mayor of New York and their heavy-handedness. That's what socialists do. We know better for you. We know, as a matter of fact, you just sit back there and take it. And maybe we'll help you financially, maybe we won't.
And my buddies are going to be able to have their businesses open.
Thank you.
But for safety, quote unquote, we're going to shut down everything else, or we're going to take control. We're going to exercise our power.
Even though the science has shown that these places that they're shutting down are not the primary means of the propagation of this virus.
Yeah.
The science shows that.
And despite what they do, even despite these shutdowns, there are spikes.
Yes.
It's not even working.
And it's going to be.
This is California is one of the worst places in the country for this stuff. There are other states who are a little more strict. Georgia, where I live, is not bad at all. South Carolina, where you live, is not bad at all.
Right.
But yet we have this bill that's being negotiated. We didn't talk much about the new stimulus bill. Last week we talked about the stimulus bill.
Yeah.
And then it got all the way through Congress, and then Trump undercut the Republicans again.
Yeah.
Now, let me just say, Trump does this all the time. They negotiate something. They have a deal worked out. His team is even involved in it.
Yeah.
And then he undercuts Republicans and puts everybody in a bad spot by wanting $2,000 more. Now, his argument is a good one. He's saying if you can spend all this money all these other places, you can give that to Americans. Unfortunately, as we know, Rand Paul talked about last week that we played his sound clip, that extra money is just going to be added on top.
Right. Nothing's taken out. That's just added on. And that was not what Trump initially wanted, by the way.
No, it's not. But now you've got a situation where Trump has put Republicans in a spot where they look like the bad guys if they say we can't triple this payout to everybody. And by the way, does everybody really need a payout? Do me and my wife really need $2,000 each because of what's happened during this pandemic? The honest answer is no, we don't. We were affected in the spring. We're not really affected right now by what's going on because we live in Georgia. So the thing is, this is not something, if I'm being frank and honest with you, I appreciate Trump for a lot of things, but if we're being frank, this is not something that Republicans and conservatives need to be championing, which is just shoveling money out the door that we don't really have.
Right. And I hear your point. I just have to agree with Trump that $600 is an insult. That's an idea. I mean, I don't think that
extended unemployment benefits, I don't think it should loans be done to small businesses. Yeah. These are things, Cleve, these are things that ought to be done at the state level. California should foot the bill for their own shutdown policies.
Agreed.
They should be footing this bill, not the rest of the country. Same for New York, same for Michigan. Instead, we're all footing the bill for basically a California problem.
Yeah.
We have to realize that this is what's happening, and there's a lot of stuff in there other than the $600, and you can make the argument that it doesn't make sense to give everybody in the country money when not everybody in the country needs relief.
Well, the $2,000, though, will only go to a certain tier of income, by the way, so it's not really to every taxpayer, just to toss that in there. However, you make a great point. Wish we could go further, but unfortunately, we're just about out of time. Hey, again, pray for Georgia, pray for the citizens, and pray that any chicanery is going on, that God Almighty himself will stop it, because it looks like he's the only one who can.
Now, he can do anything, and he's been involved in governments and in people's affairs for all of time, and he's going to continue to do that, I believe.
He's got pretty good contacts, too, about getting things done.
He's got connections.
David, where can folks hear this again?
Apple Podcasts. You can see it on Facebook, see it on YouTube. And Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you, no matter what.